Hello out there in the YouTubeverse. We are back once again for yet another Pauper Primer. You got Max, you got Jared down there.
Hi!
Hi. And we are back talking about one of our favorite things ever. New set, new cards, new paupering. So, the normal video format is we talk about Pauper, the format, and then we talk about Arena Pauper, the format. But in this video, we're going to do it a little bit differently. We are going to eschew speaking about Pauper for two main reasons. One, they really didn't get a whole lot of toys, at least immediately, and it's so shaken up right now with the recent bannings that it's kind of not worth really getting into how new cards are going to impact it in a very minor way, potentially. Secondly, Arena Pauper, now with the new Jumpstart Historic Horizons set, is kind of its own thing for the first time, because it has cards not available to regular Pauper, so it's become a unique format. So we are going to focus more predominantly on that than actual factual Pauper in these videos, because normally it's just a small little touch anyway.
Yep.
So if you don't like that, let us know in the comments. If you're happy about that, let us know in the comments. We can do it and tailor it however we want. We get to do whatever we want around here.
Yeah, and if you want us to do something different, let us know in the comments.
He's right. So we can definitely tailor the content to what suits you best. We love Pauper, so we're happy talking about anything Pauper.
Yep, absolutely.
That all being said, we need to dive into this new Innistrad set, which is impacting Arena Pauper. And I think a little bit more so than regular Pauper.
Yeah.
But this Arena Pauper, because it's brand new and we just got a bajillion new cards from the Jumpstart set, it's also kind of the Wild West. Now, if you've watched our videos for a long time, you know we kind of have the format broken down into a rock, paper, scissors style with the tier 1 decks all kind of besting each other, which makes for a generally healthy metagame. The ability for tier 2 decks to sneak in there and do well. It's overall a fairly healthy format. I don't think that Historic Horizons has done anything overly damaging with regard to Pauper. I think it's opened things up. It's made things... There's a little bit better choices of cards, but nothing that's immediately insane. But we're going to stay away from talking about that till we've really had time to see what cards prove out, because there's just so darn many.
There are tons. Too many.
So, yeah, too many. And you'll see kind of in this primer, we talk about a few more cards than usual in the set because there's the possibility for so many things to exist. So we're going to talk about the cards that I'm fairly sure you would see. I think are higher odds you'll see when you're playing Pauper. And then I'm going to talk about cards that may be a little bit more niche, depending on how the metagame shakes out long term. So our first card will be a white card, and it's going to be Cathar Commando, which is a 3/1 for 2. It's a human soldier with flash, pretty neat. And you can pay a colorless, sacrifice said commando, and destroy an artifact or an enchantment. I think that this card's pretty neat. It's a human, which is marginal. It's a soldier, which is marginal. They're both creature types that have been impacted in the past. Nothing in particular in Pauper really deals with either one or makes it a significant choice in either direction, but worth noting that these are common creature types, and there could be something down the road that helps out either human or soldier, as there has been in the past. Flash is really interesting here. 3/1 with Flash is pretty cool. It means that the opponent can take their combat step. You either have a pretty aggressively statted blocker, or you have surprise 3 damage you didn't see coming.
Yeah, both are pretty solid.
Yeah, the flexibility here is really good. I think it gives it the bump over something like a Ranom Unicorn. You have to pay mana to use the ability. It is a generic mana, so if you have if you're playing mono white and you have a colorless land for value, or if you're playing it in 2 color, it gives you a little bit of more flexibility. You have to have that mana open though. But being able to just go end of your turn, 3/1, pay 1, like 3/1, block this creature I couldn't normally block, pay 1 generic mana, and blow up your pacifism or whatever your particular enchantment is.
Yeah.
Or your equipment on your other creature or whatever is pretty powerful.
I'm a big fan of this. Just calling it 2 and a white to destroy an artifact or enchantment's pretty decent on its own. Like, I mean, it's not as good as like Disenchant, but just the flexibility of it being a 3/1 it's huge.
Yeah, the fact it's almost like a modal spell in Pauper the choice makes it a little bit makes it more worth the 1 generic mana, which is not that high of a cost for it. So I think it's really good. It kind of fits into what we've been saying, which is kind of like this white weenie value deck that pseudo resembles something like a Death and Taxes style deck more so than like a token or life gain style deck. Mm-hmm. So I'm excited to see what we can get down the line for this white value deck, or even maybe like white with like a light splash of another color. Should be pretty good, and I think this card will be a role player, even if it's just like a 2 of in these decks. I think it's pretty good. It falls in a good spot on the curve. It doesn't hurt anything. Mm-hmm. I was holding up a trick. I didn't need to use it, so I'm just going to pop this dude onto the battlefield. Cool. Absolutely. Sounds good.
Yeah, like I feel like Unlimited this thing is going to be a house too, but for sure Pauper's going to see some play with it.
Yeah, totally. The next card we have up on the docket is something to consider, the Magic card Consider. So it is a single blue instant. You look at the top card of your library. You may put that card into your graveyard. So surveil 1.
Yep.
And then draw a card. Simple, straightforward. Another cantrip in blue. This one kind of checks a lot of important boxes. It's an instant. It costs 1 single mana. It draws you the card. It lets you filter the top card. So it's a little bit better than just single blue instant draw card. So it's not quite not quite on the level of something terribly weak like a Whispers of the Muse or something like that.
Yeah.
But it has, Whispers of the Muse has buyback, so that card can be insane. But this card with the little Surveil 1 tacked on is a really nice cantrip. It's not super duper powerful, but it's a very nice card to consider in a lot of these tempo-y style decks, like Goblin Electromancer style decks, Kiln Fiend, if you like that flavor of blue-red in your Kiln Fiend. This is a good card to consider putting in. I'll stop, I promise.
No, you won't. It's going to be accidental, but you'll still do it.
The reason I like this card so much is because it lines up really well with the card Spell Pierce. You can leave that 1 mana up and kind of never get punished. Like, it feels really good. It's very similar to Opt. 8 copies of Opt sometimes. There are definitely Pauper decks I've been experimenting with, and it was just like, man, if I could jam 8 Opts in here, I would.
Yeah, honestly. I mean, there's 2 different arts. You should be able to. So
right, exactly.
So now you can.
Yeah, now you have multiple options to consider. All right, seriously done this time. Yeah. Next card is Diagraph Horde. Wow. This is a biggie. This is probably the most expensive card I have ever considered for Arena Pauper. It is 4 and a black for a 3/4.
Yep.
When it enters the battlefield, you make 2 2/2 black zombie creature tokens with Decayed, and when you do, you exile up to 2 target cards from graveyards. So, holy crap.
This thing does a lot.
There is so much going on with this Magic card. The reason I mention it is because I do think it has a home in some of these grindier black or black-white decks where you're using life gain plus drain, or you're playing mono black control and you like this as a possible 2 of or 1 of win condition.
Yeah.
I think it really fits the bill, it being so much power. Like, this is 4 and a black for 7 power. That's a lot to come. Like, that's the stats of, like, that's bigger than a Colossal Dreadmaw coming down.
Yeah.
So, black has a very strong and is easily able to keep the board clear. So if you're ready to cast this Horde, it's going to likely be onto an empty board. Mm-hmm. Or a board where if your opponent taps out to cast something, you just immediately kill it anyway. So this Horde's going to have, this Horde and its zombie tokens are likely going to just deal 7. So it's a strong consideration. It's up there with Epicure of Blood for being warranted, I think, to cost that much mana.
Yeah.
Exiling cards is quite nice in this format, being able to snag something like Devious Cover-Up, something along the lines of a little flashback card now, or a Disturb card, something that has implications in the graveyard, makes this card, I think, worth considering if your deck can warrant the top end at 5.
Yeah.
You don't just jam it to any deck. I don't know as though it definitely goes into like a Sacrifice or Aristocrat style deck, but it feels like it could because it's just making so many extra bodies.
Yeah, ones that are going to die anyway.
Yeah, so I think that this card is a consideration if your deck can handle the very high mana cost.
Yeah, I wonder if it could go into just the zombie deck that you have. Like it's 3 zombies for 1 card, which is pretty good.
Real good when you're cycling a gem palm.
Yep.
Decayed is awesome, and I'm really looking at cards for the zombie deck. I'm really hoping I can squeeze 1 or 2 cards, because there's definitely upgrades that can be made to my current zombie deck.
Absolutely.
So we'll get to one of them that's definitely on the list.
Yes, absolutely.
But first, Festival Crasher. This little guy with a pumpkin on his head.
This little devil.
He is a little devil. He is a 1/3 for 1 and a red devil. When you cast an instant or sorcery spell, Festival Crasher gets +2/+0 until end of turn. So
I have an important question. How did he get the pumpkin over his horns without breaking the pumpkin?
They're very sharp.
But they're curved. But
they're curved and ribbed. It's
they're they go out. It would have taken so long to get right.
Maybe it went in the other way.
Or maybe, it got glued back together? I don't know.
That's possible. He just, seared it. It's so hot, it just... Whoosh.
Yeah, it re-seared pumpkin?
Maybe.
That's fine. All right. Now that my important questions have been asked.
Okay. This little guy is like your Kiln Fiends 5 through 8. He is not nearly as good, because obviously it's 1 less power. But I think if you're playing the Kiln Fiend deck... This card gets the nod over the 1/3 from Innistrad, or not Innistrad, excuse me, from Ravnica.
With Trample,
With Trample. So that one only gets +1/+0. This gets twice as much. And I think if you're pushing for Kiln Fiend, the way I run it is I run it mono red, and I play Ryle, and I play Crash through, so I have 8 things that give Trample in the main. And I think if you're going to play Festival Crasher, that's the direction you want to go. You just really want the evasion. If you're more on pinpoint pump, something like Infuriates and stuff like that, I think you're going towards playing the weird in addition to the Kiln Fiend. I think this card isn't quite as good because you're lacking the evasion.
Yeah.
But if you're playing where the trample built in is much more attractive when you're infuriating that card.
Yeah, that's the style that I ran in the mini Pauper tournament, because I like running the red pump spells like Barge In and Infuriate. So. Well, granted, Barge In gives trample to everything anyway, but...
Barge In's very good.
So maybe I should... I could actually look into shifting into a more traditional style, just running the creatures that get better pumps, so...
Yeah, there's a lot now. It's impressive. And you get the Burning Prophet. It's quite good. Your card selection in just mono red, with all the cantrips and the Burning Prophet and a little bit of scrying you can do, is really surprising. And Festival Crasher slots right in. It's a nice aggressive creature. It blocks pretty well. If you're somehow on the back foot, it can at least go in there and block. It does a lot. I'm impressed with the fact that we're going to get another one. I think that it's going to kind of cinch up the deck. It's going to become a very good version of the deck, and I'm not even sure how I'm going to slot for it, but I do want to try to test for it.
It'll be
for
interesting,
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely worth considering in that style of deck. Next card we have is it's another red card. It's the Harvest-Tide Infiltrator. Harvest-Tide Infiltrator.
Harvest-Tide.
Harvest-Tide Infiltrator, yeah. So I want to talk about this card specifically because Jared threatened me when we were about to make this video. He said I have to put Moonrager Slash in, and I think he's right. We'll talk about Moonrager Slash when we get there. So what I said to him was, I agree with you. I think the Slash is awesome if we can find a decent card that can actually create day and night.
Yep.
And that's the key. And I think this Infiltrator is the best statted werewolf that we have. 3/2 trample for 3 is not a bad rate. The 2 is a little sketchy.
Yeah.
But not so sketchy that I'm not going to run it in order to start my day. Paying 3 at some points for a day-night trigger might be worth the cost of admission right there. And if I can flip this thing, it's very hard to kill in Pauper.
Yeah. 4/4 trample.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Yeah, those are really surprisingly strong stats. And maybe this is in a little bit more of a creature-based version of this. We've seen like an equipment build in red.
Yeah.
We have seen just kind of like big undercosted beefers in red and a little bit of burn to back them up. This is kind of a good home for something like this card. And I think obviously the slash then becoming just full-on lightning bolt makes it pretty insane and hard to ignore in the set. But I think of the cards we're talking about, it's on the weaker end of the spectrum, but unanswered, holy crap, this card can do some work.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really like the possibility for this one, especially if you just are stuck and this thing flips, you just almost have to scoop. Like, how do you beat this thing? Like, you're minimally 2-for-1ing yourself to deal with it, which is just ridiculous. Next on the list is a red card.
We like red.
It's cheap. It's an enchantment. It's an oldie. It is Immolation. So this is a single red enchantment, as I said, an aura specifically. It enchants a creature. Enchanted creature gets +2, -2.
Yep.
So a very interesting card to play. It can either make your creatures better or your opponent's creatures deader. So it's pretty flexible. It's cheap.
Yeah, a single red for this. I mean, it's dead weight, but in red, so it's red weight.
It's red weight. It can do a cool little bit of tricks with anything that cares about auras. It can do some pretty neat stuff. Mm-hmm. And I like the fact that if you're playing a creature that maybe gets bigger, like I'm thinking the Red Weird, specifically, you can play that whenever you cast a non-creature spell. You get to put a 1/1 counter on it. You slap this on there. It's even bigger.
Yep.
You're not committing a ton of mana to it, and this thing's coming in for a ton of damage.
Yeah.
So it's really quite powerful. And killing off your opponent's cheap creatures. 2 is the key. We talk about it all the time. 2 power and Pauper is the danger zone because so much red. If it's basically fails the shock test, right? So much. The -2/-2s that are cheap out of black all deal with it. Dead weight specifically is one of those great examples. So this is one of those testers, but it has the reverse of if I can't kill a creature with it, I can make one of my creatures better. Especially if it's like we were just talking about that 1/3 trampler. I'll pop this guy on there and make this a big butt or big power trampler, small butt, but big power trampler.
Yeah, because it could be a build your own ball lightning at that point.
Right, exactly. It's just a very powerful card, potentially, and the cost of playing it is not very high at all, which is really awesome. So I like that concept a lot. On the complete opposite end of the spectrum, from red cards, is this next card, this Lunar Veteran. 1/1 for 1. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you gain a life. It's Human Cleric. It's got Disturb. So you can cast this card from their graveyard by paying its Disturb cost, and it turns into a 1/1 Spirit Cleric with flying. And whenever another creature you control leaves the battlefield, you gain a life. And then, obviously, if they deal with the Phantom at that point, and it's only by putting it into a graveyard, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
You exile instead. So if they bounce it, it just goes back to your hand. It's not like Unearth.
Yep, or a weird, blink effect.
Yeah.
You get this right back onto the other side.
Absolutely. So, a pretty flexible card. It goes great, obviously. It's your Soul Warden 5-8, and then you still have your the Impassioned Orator on the 2-drop to gain you more life.
Yep.
The white life gain deck is definitely not to be trifled with.
Yeah, there's a lot
at this point.
A lot going on with it.
So many triggers that help it out. Obviously, Anointer Priest if you build a token version. There's just so much that gains you life in that deck. Your life total can get so ridiculously high in this build. And you just got to watch out for the Suffocating Fumes. If you can play around Suffocating Fumes, you're in good shape because the cost of building this deck is so many of your cards have 1 toughness.
Yeah.
So definitely don't be afraid to pack a charge because it's a cheap white instant that'll save all your creatures from a Suffocating Fumes.
Yeah, it's true.
But yeah, nice, simple, does a lot of work, and I think it's going to be turns into an evasive creature, which is an important note as well. Each removal, it doesn't really care. It can kind of just do what it needs to do and keep going, which is really important. Next card's a red card.
Yep, we touched on it already.
We did. The card Jared threatened me had to be in here. Moonrager Slash. 2 and a red instant. This spell costs 2 generic mana less to cast if it is night, and it deals 3 damage to any target.
Yep. I was really
Very
happy.
Powerful.
I was really happy to have you discover that on stream, because
you
were just like, wait, what?
Yeah, these never go to face.
Not anymore now.
So I was excited to see it.
Angry Werewolf is angry.
And we did win a game later down the line with it.
Yep, just they were at 2, and it's like now they're at not 2.
Yep, that's right. And I think, like you said, if you can find the enablers here to start triggering night and day, no matter what it is, whatever fits your deck's theme, I think that once this card turns to night, that just the potential for a single mana 3 damage source in Arena Pauper is very real. Frostbite can't go to face, but it's very good because it can deal 3 damage, which is so important. That's where creatures in Pauper start to stay alive through removal, and red has to start either doubling the cost of its removal spells, so you have to go into the 1 and a red territory to get your, like, Jaya's Immolating Inferno, or no, is that the rare one?
Jaya's Greeting?
Greeting, yes.
That's just her saying hi.
And that Fire Prophecy from Ikoria.
Yep, I love that card.
It's good. And you start to get into those kind of cards, where this gets the 3 damage done. It can be more expensive than those, but when it's cheaper, holy cow. And the fact it can just close out a game is really powerful. We really haven't seen 1 mana instant 3 damage to the face at this point. So
it's been a while.
Yeah. So I'm very excited that it exists here. I mean, obviously we have Unholy Heat to deal with creatures now. If you can get Delirium, which is kind of tough in Arena Pauper. It's not the easiest thing to do.
Yeah, there's no Planeswalkers in common. There's no tribal.
Right. So a few cards now, because there's so much graveyard interacting going on in the set, can help. Mm-hmm. But I think Unholy Heat will find a home, same as Moonrager Slash down the line, because it's obvious that Transform is here to stay, and it's obvious that the werewolf style night day thing has only been evolving. So I think that this design and this template, it seems unlikely it's not evergreen. It seems like it's not just going to be like a haunt or something where it's like it showed up once, we didn't like it, and it went away.
Yeah.
Things have been transforming with the spells being cast caveat since original Innistrad. Mm-hmm. Doesn't look like that's going to change too quickly. So the next card on our list is a white card. It is Search Party Captain. It is 3 and a white. Human Soldier, 2/2. Now, the spell costs 1 generic mana less to cast for each creature you attacked with this turn. And when it enters the battlefield, draw a card.
It's really nice.
It's really good. Saural's Packmate, already a borderline playable. Not as good as it was in the limited, but still a pretty solid choice as a playable in Pauper already. Search Party Captain is kind of like the white version of it. I don't want to be every Magic player and just cheat at my head and say it's white Saural's Packmate. It's less power, it's less toughness, but it has those relevant creature types, potentially. Again, not immediately, but potentially down the line. It's got that, and it's getting cheaper for something white wants to do already anyway.
Yeah, like you can possibly play this for a single white. Yes. So
playing it for a single white, drawing another card you can then immediately cast is crazy. That's the thing. I think you don't want to tunnel vision yourself on Search Party Captain and go, I don't cast it unless I can cast it for 1, or I just simply cast it as soon as possible, or else it's worse. It still has a ton of power, being able to let you double spell 4th or 5th turn.
Yeah.
As much so as it does you just being like, all right, creature on 1, creature on 2, and then I play this on the 3rd turn with a pretty severe discount. Yeah. So don't just fall into the trap of thinking that it's only good if you're casting it as fast as possible. The power this has is also in double spelling. Very, very much when your opponent doesn't want you to, especially like 4th turn, it's just like this guy and then something else. And they're giving us so many white cards that kind of can trip. Yeah. It's just like, yikes, this is really good. Like you attack with 3 creatures, play this for a white, draw yourself a card, play the priest from Forgotten Realms that gains life and draws you a card.
Yep.
It's like, I didn't lose a card, and I just put 2 creatures on the battlefield. In addition to the 3 I had that attacked you. That's pretty alarming.
Yeah, that can get out of hand. So
the card advantage engine that White has potential for is, wow, it's very impressive, I think. So the next card we have is a black card, Change of Pace.
Finally. Well, it's been a while.
This is the zombie I was talking about that 100% is going in my zombie deck. It is Siege Zombie. 1 and a black for a 2/2 zombie.
Yep, it's a bear, which is already pretty good for a zombie.
Oh yeah, much better than the 2/1s I'm currently running. You can tap 3 untapped creatures you control. Each opponent loses 1 life.
It's just so good.
The one thing the zombie deck does do, one of the weaknesses, is it kind of can get into a position where it can be stalled out because the creatures aren't that good.
Yeah.
Generally, I'm winning with Gem Palm Polluters. When that's the case, like, all right, I just got to dump zombies on the board and try to win with Gem Palm. Siege Zombie really helps me break these stalemates, where it's like, damn it, my opponent's at 5, and I have like 4 zombies out, and I just can't get by their blockers. Well, not a problem now.
Yeah.
I'm still picking away at their life total. That's a big problem. And what's really nice about Siege Zombie is if I have 2 other zombies out and he's my 3rd, I can still tap him right away because of the way it's templated.
Yep, there's no tap symbol, so it does not require Summoning Sickness to go away.
Yes, it's pretty awesome. So this card, very flexible. I think it's very good in the decks that may be like mid-rangey or prone to being kind of stopped by an impressive board state. This just helps you keep a tempo advantage, and it's a must-answer threat, which is really important. And in the zombie deck, it's so recursive that it's like, oh yeah, you kill it, I get it back. It's not a problem. And usually plus a card or just with a 2/2 body.
It's there's so many, like, as soon as I saw it, I was like, that's going in Max's deck, I know, for sure.
Oh yeah, card is just bonkers. Very impressed with that one. And this last card that I think we're going to see, I'm pretty sure we'll see them, and then we'll get into the longer shots here in a second, but the last card I'm fairly sure you will see is a classic. We've been seeing this same group of folks since original Innistrad.
Oh boy.
It's a big, unruly mob. They are 1 and a white for a 1/1 human. Whenever another creature you control dies, put a 1/1 counter on the unruly mob.
They arrive for every Innistrad set, ready to be angry.
They are really pissed off, and they continue to be really pissed off. These poor people.
They've been through so much.
So much. And these, obviously, we'll see. I think you'll see them in the little tiny creatures decks, because when your creatures die, you get an advantage. I think we'll see them in some kind of sacrifice deck, because it's inevitable. The black-white decks that tend to like incrementally gain life and ding tend to play a lot of like village rites and little things that let you sack the creatures for value down the line. And I think Unruly Mob pays off in those decks fairly well. It's a little like, it's not evasive, but it can get very big. So if you can pay off having a big creature, it's definitely worth being able to play a couple Unruly Mob. I don't think it's just slam 4 of them. And we haven't seen a black-white aristocrat style deck.
Like, unless you build around that theme, then it's not really worth running for.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to be like, okay, because like your big payoff if you were going to play this card would be something like a Fling. So that puts you into red. And now it's like, are you going to play it just full Mardu and try to get around the slow? Not that the mana bases are clunky in this version of Pauper, because we have access to the Thriving Lands. And you have several copies of Dual Lands, you have Evolving Wilds. You have a lot of ways to make your mana, but the tap lands can cost you turns. So I'd be interested to fiddle with it. I just don't know if 3-color has a home yet in Arena Pauper. It could.
It could.
The removal's getting better from the Jumpstart set. Obviously, we talked about Unholy Heat. There's the single black instant that perpetually gives something -1, -2.
Yep.
So the removal's getting cheap, and it's getting very good. So there is definitely a chance that mid-range can become king in this format, which would mean something like the Mask deck becomes better than the red deck, and that would mean that the black deck tends to pack a little bit more in the way of edict effects. So then you get advantage to play a bunch of creatures because edict effects become worse. So this is how a metagame evolves. So that's kind of what we're trying to keep an eye on. And it's a good segue into cards we think might be playable, depending on how the metagame shifts. The first one's a red card, because we got to stay on theme. White card, red card.
Yep.
It's Ardent Elementalist. So this card is a 4 cost. That's right, 3 and a red.
Steep.
It doesn't get cheaper.
Nope.
It's a human shaman. It's a 2/1. But when it enters the battlefield, return an instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand. So this is like the cheapest version of this effect we've gotten. There's there's the 3 blue one. There is also the one that has kicker. Force, I think, makes it 6 total mana. To do this.
The wizard from Zendikar Rising, whatever it's called.
Yep, and then there is the one from Dominaria that also has it's the red one that does the same thing for 6.
Yes.
It's like 3 and a red kicker. So we have those. So 5 or 6, and generally you're talking double pips. This is a single pip, and it's 4, so it's 1 cheaper. It's the same stats as the one from Zendikar, and it's got the human, which again is possibly future relevant. But being able to just recycle something like a blink of an eye to keep recasting the Elementalist and create a loop, or if you're playing it in like a Rakdos shell and you're using it to return something that can recur it, you have an infinite blocker, can be very valuable, especially if you have something like when a creature enters the battlefield or when a creature leaves the battlefield, things trigger. You can start to really create this synergy machine that's hard for the opponent to overcome.
Yeah.
So very possible that this could be a card that helps kick off an archetype, or at least helps solidify an archetype. The next card on our maybe list is the Novice Occultist. And this card, obviously, when you see it, it's pretty obvious what deck needs to become popular in order for it to be a thing. It is a 1/2 for 2, 1 and a black. It's a human wizard, and when it dies, you draw a card and lose a life. So this obviously goes into the Aristocrat style, sacrifice for value. So if you're not familiar with Aristocrats, literally the idea of the deck is it sacrifices its own creatures or permanents for a benefit. So you don't mind if this dies because you're getting a card out of it. It probably blocks, especially if it blocks something with one toughness, it's a trade. So you're even on cards there, and then you go up a card by drawing one. Your opponent loses their card.
Yep.
So that benefits you. That's the premise of an Aristocrat-style deck. My apologies for not explaining it sooner, but that is what it means.
Yeah, I mean, we may have touched on it on previous of these.
Yep, and it's always one we mention. It's an archetype I personally love, and I think it's a very fringy playable deck.
Yeah.
So it's one to keep an eye out for, and this is a potential because it's a little bit better than a Dusk Legion Zealot if you have ways for it to die.
Yep.
It's just got that one more toughness, and again, potentially down the line, we see human and wizard on this, which are 2 very common archetypes. Helps add to your party. Forget about that.
It is a party card.
It's a party card. Next one on the list.
Also a party card, but not for the same reason.
No. It's a Jack-o'-lantern. So, Jack-o'-lantern is a single mana artifact, and its name is very weird.
Yep. Jack-O''Lantern. Yeah,
very strange. Good luck searching for that one. Just type Jack. It's probably your best bet. It has 2 abilities.
Yeah.
Pay 1, tap it, sacrifice it. Exile up to 1 target card from a graveyard, draw a card. So at worst, it's kind of pay 2, draw a card. Alright, like good enough, right? Like it's fine. Then you can pay 1, exile it from your graveyard to filter a mana.
Yeah.
So very cool role player. I really like it in the style of deck. Like we have the Boros style Artifacts Matter deck. I like it in there. I like it possibly as a little mini version of Chromatic Sphere and Affinity. Could see a home there. It's just a little like way to draw a card or just an artifact on the battlefield early game.
Yep.
There's a lot of potential for this card to be good if one of those archetypes kind of takes off. And again, I think it only takes 1 or 2 cards to really make that pretty good. These little like Golden Egg style artifacts can be good if it finds the right home. You see it in normal Pauper and something like a Boros Monarch. So if there's something along those lines that can take advantage of that minor card advantage over time, and generally these are non-blue decks that do, then this card's, I think, going to see a little bit of play in them, for sure. The next card is the opposite of Raise. That's Raise the Effigy.
Sneak behind the scenes. I tried to look up this card when Max told me it, and I typed in RAISE, and I was like, it's not coming up. It's like, oh, it's the opposite of Raise. It's Raise. I'm like, son of a...
Yep, the wrong Raise. Raise to build something up. This Raise tear something down.
I hate English.
Yep. It's a single red instant. You get to choose one. A nice modal spell here for single red.
Yes.
Destroy target artifact. Target attacking creature gets +2/+2 till end of turn. So this is a card that probably goes in your Kiln Fiend deck, or the Kiln Fiend style deck we were alluding to with the specific targeted creature pump.
Yep.
And it's in there if Affinity or an artifact style deck, I'm calling it Affinity, but like a Robots or something with a heavy artifact theme, it could be the Equipment deck, starts to become very good. This is a very easy to slot in answer because your deck's already looking for this effect. Minorly worse in that it's one less power than something like an Infuriate, but the flexibility of the modal part makes it very good.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if red or an artifact-based strategy starts to take over, a red deck has an immediate answer with this card in its arsenal. I don't think it's a main deck card. I don't think it's a card you're looking to jam into your deck right away. But if you're new to Pauper and you need a card where it's just like, crap, I don't have enough wild cards to make an Infuriate or to make another pump spell, and you've been playing a little bit of Limited, or you open some packs, this is a totally playable option. You'll find more artifacts to destroy, I think, than you may suspect immediately. Like, you're going to use that mode probably more often than you'd imagine.
Yeah, I'd say 1 out of 5 times maybe, but still, when you have that silver bullet, not to be a pun on a different type of card that we're not talking about, in the deck already, it makes your opponent's plan, like, so much worse. And it can honestly throw them off because you're just like, why would they have run something to kill my artifact? Why did they do that?
Yeah, absolutely. Your opponent jams a Mirror Enforcer, they feel like a genius, and then you're just like, what? And you're just like, what? Nobody answers my Mirror Enforcer for one card. Like, nobody 1-for-1s my Mirror Enforcer in this format.
Yeah, the fact that red is just like, it used to be Shatter was like the premier, just destroy an artifact, 1 in a red. And then they got Crush, I think. Or Smash.
That's correct. One of those.
One of those two. The other one is one that draws a card but costs 3. I can't remember which is which because they all sound the same. But now it's just like, now it's a single red to destroy an artifact or do something else, which is pretty relevant in most red decks.
They've come a long way.
They have to stop doing this.
It's how good will these cards get?
Yeah, it's like
1 red Phyrexian mana.
Holy sh! No, not that.
Speaking of artifacts, our next card on the maybe list is one. And this is a Stuffed Bear. It's a 2-cost artifact that you may pay 2 generic mana at any time, and it becomes a 4/4 green bear artifact creature until end of turn.
So it does stay an artifact for Raise the Effigy.
That it does. You don't have to just respond to the activation and then hope your opponent doesn't have 2 more mana. You get to take it out no matter what.
Yep.
So this is very along the lines of Mimic, which we talked about when we were looking at AFR. And I still feel like this is relevant in a deck where it's either a control deck looking to use this as a win condition to get around sorcery speed interaction, or the Affinity deck may like this as just a cheap artifact that sits on the battlefield and they can use it to turn into a more significant attacker.
Yep.
This is a 4/4 stats look a lot better than the Mimic's 3/3, and it just is a little bit cheaper to do. It doesn't have the treasure added on to it, which maybe, depending on your deck, depending on what else you're casting, might be a non-starter for you. But just being able to have a cheap artifact sometimes, especially in an Affinity-based deck, is really going to help you out. Makes those Mirror Enforcers a little cheaper, brightens your opponent a good deal because you can, in an Affinity deck, you can cast your Mirror Enforcer for 3 mana, still have enough up to attack them that turn with the Stuffed Bear.
Yeah, but the 4/4 is no joke. Like,
no.
We were talking about the one Werewolf as a 4/4 Trampler. Like, this steps to that for just as cheap.
Agreed.
Like, also on the 3rd turn, you could have a 4/4 Bear.
Yep. It's hard to answer with the removal in the format. It just really is. So it's no joke. So I don't think don't sleep on the stuffed bear is what I'm saying. Just don't do it.
Probably wouldn't be that comfortable anyway.
Final card we're going to look at for this as a maybe is Tapping at the Window. Look at the top 3 cards of your library. It's a sorcery for 1 and a green. You may reveal a creature card from among them and put it into your hand, and then put the rest into your graveyard, which I think is the most important part of this card.
Yes.
Being able to fill up your graveyard hasn't really been a thing we've been able to do super easily, and we really haven't been able to do it outside of black. So being able to fill up your graveyard in green is pretty nice.
Mm-hmm.
Having access to find a creature generally is what you're looking to pay off in Pauper anyway, because we don't have access to cards like Planeswalkers. So you're looking usually for a creature payoff most of the time, and being able to put more cards into your graveyard is a really nice benefit for something like an Unholy Heat. That can put you, this card by itself can put you 3/4 of the way to Delirium.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it is worth noting, and it also flashes back on the relative cheap, just 2 and a green.
Mm-hmm.
To be able to do it again, and in turns where it's late, maybe like late and the game's grinding out a little bit, you can use this and still be able to cast maybe like a Dusk Legion Zealot if you're playing an Aristocrat style deck, or just a little cheap green creature.
Yeah.
It has a lot of implications, but again, the format has to shift, I think, a little bit to become slightly more mid-rangey, and by that, I mean to say needs to be about 1.5 turns slower on the average for this card to really become prevalent. But I think this, as well as we have the card that's green and black, and it's an instant that lets you look at 5 cards and dump a bunch into your graveyard.
Grizzly Salvage.
Grizzly Salvage, yeah. And again, this gets around that if you really don't want to play black, which I think we're opening up for more of going forward. Obviously, we saw the Ardent Elementalist.
Mm-hmm.
So you could play like a 2-color version of that, or use green to maybe open you up to 3 colors. And you could play a 3-color version of something that's using the graveyard to gain advantage, which sounds really fun. But again, format needs to slow down. So a lot of potential cards and a lot more cards that I think are going to be pretty cool to play with coming up here from this new set.
Absolutely.
But again, so much hinges on this Horizon set. And if you want to see us do one of these for Historic Horizons, again, the reason we haven't is because we're still taking time to kind of parse through this. I mean, that set was nearly 800 cards.
Yeah.
And
they
that's
can see,
ridiculous.
Yeah, they can see the tabs on my Chrome window here. And there's like 17 right now. It would just be impossible because it'd be so small, and Chrome, being Chrome, would probably crash by the time we got all the cards. So maybe we should just pull a
277.
Yeah,
as a good example. That's 3 times larger.
Maybe we should just pull unlimited resources and just do 1 color at a time of commons.
Seriously, yeah. If you guys out there and gals would like to see something like that from us, again, you gotta hit us up in the comments. We'll make it. If you want to watch it, we'll make it. We sit here and talk about commons all day long.
Absolutely.
So let us know if that's something you're interested in for us to break down the colors and see what's playable. Keep an eye out on the channel. We're here every Thursday with a new video, of course. You can catch us on Twitch as well.
Yep.
Twitch.tv/Superliminal Films. We'll be playing some Pauper, and obviously we're going to start to bring you a little bit more Pauper now that Arena Pauper is its own thing. So do look for the return of a fan favorite on our channel, which is Pop-Up Video. And that's going to come at you with more Arena Pauper-focused action, especially in the short term as we unpack the format. So let us know if you're interested. Let us know if you're not interested and you're like, oh God, not more Pauper. Let us know that. We'll probably ignore it.
Probably.
But at least we'll take note. If like a bunch of people are like, we have an unruly mob's worth of people going, no Pauper, we'd at least consider maybe something else.
Damn it.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.